My name is David Temple. I'm conductor of Hertfordshire Chorus, and I joined in 2000 and met my good friend Robin Seaman, who is a singer in the choir. One of the first things I discovered about Robin is that he was a treble with Benjamin Britten, a story which has fascinated me from the very first time I met him. And it's only now, during lockdown, that I get the chance to ask him lots of questions about it. So I do hope you enjoy this little chat between us. Robin, can you tell me how you started as a singer and also the first time you ever set eyes on Benjamin Britten?
I joined the Finchley Children's Music Group when I was about 9 years old. I didn't sing to start with. The first thing we did was I played the part of a monkey in a production called The Statue for the Mayor. But we soon moved on and did various performances, particularly Noah's Flood, which of course was the reason that the Finchley Group was set up in the first place. Benjamin Britten was the president of the Finchley Group and he wanted to form a boys' choir. So the London Boys Singers emerged in 1961, with Britten taking an interest in the choir right from the start. I first met him, I think would have been in 1962, when the choir was to perform in the Aldeburgh Festival. And Britten came to Finchley to rehearse with us all before that. So that would have been the first time I met him.
I have a photograph here of you with Benjamin Britten, and I think you're on the end of the line. Is that right? Is that you?
Yes, that's me. London Boys Singers lined up outside the church in Aldeburgh with Peter Pears and Benjamin Britten and George Malcolm. They were all in the concert.
It would be good at this point just to hear what you sounded like as a treble, because it's very different from seeing you and hearing you now, even though the blonde hair is still there. This is a recording of when you were in the London Boys Singers, O Come, Emmanuel.
O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel.
So that's from a recording, a Christmas music, which the London Boys Singers did. The particular carol was an arrangement by one of the boys in the choir. I also have to say that, in my view, he had probably the best voice of the choir as well. It was recorded in Abbey Road, back before the Beatles got in there, probably.
It's very interesting because obviously he had all the cathedral choirs at his disposal. Do you think he was looking for a particular type of voice with these choirs?
Yeah, he wasn't a fan of the cathedral sound. He wrote a lot for a more earthy type of voice, if you like. The Finchley group was an amateur group. There were one or two who were probably very musically gifted, but they weren't terribly musically trained, and the London Boys Singers were exactly the same. We were just ordinary boys who got together to sing because that's what we like to do.
This was all around the time of the first performance of his wonderful War Requiem. Were you involved in any of those early performances?
Yes, the first London performance was in Westminster Abbey in December. It was a wonderful thing for the choir, again, having been to Aldeburgh in the summer, to then be invited to take part in this very prestigious concert. Live performance on BBC Radio, on the third programme as it was in those days. Britten himself conducted the chamber orchestra, the Milos Ensemble. Meredith Davis conducted the whole thing. It was BBC Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. Peter Pears, Heather Harper. So just new experiences, one after another. It was a great time to be who I was and doing what I was doing. Presumably
there were quite a few children around about that time who did work with Benjamin Britten, but what made you into a soloist? I mean, how did he manage to choose you?
The short answer is I don't know, other than in the Aldeburgh Festival in 1963, I sang one of the Pickle Boy parts in St Nicholas. he would have heard me singing there. He would have then been part of the panel listening to some of the auditions, and that's how I got selected.
So there you are, on the, would it be an aeroplane to USSR in 1964, to play the part of Miles in The Turn of the Screw. And the previous person to play that part was the actor David Hemmings. The other famous treble with Britten was Michael Crawford. Some mothers do have them. So he really chose them. So when you went to the USSR, how many performances did you do of the opera?
I'm not sure how many there would have been precisely. The tour itself lasted for about a month. The English Opera Group was the group that went there. They took 30 singers and they were performing 3 different operas. But there were 26 performances in 28 days in 3 different cities. I mean, it was fairly hectic. But probably there would have been 7, 8, 9 performances of Turn of the Screw, which would have been shared with another boy as well. You know, you have to remember in the early 1960s, Russia was still an unknown place for much of the rest of the world. Certainly for us, things were very different. You found that people looked at you rather strangely because you were obviously visitors. And it's true that when people did talk to you, they wanted to know if you got any chewing gum for them, or if you got any Beatles records, or things of that nature. They weren't standoffish, but they were curious. It was a very close-knit group, the English Opera Group in Russia, and I think it was a big adventure for them all. And it took a lot of planning and a lot of funding to get the group out there. It was all, I think, achieved on the back of Britain's reputation.
One of the things I discovered while I was doing some research for this chat was that in Humphrey Carpenter's book, he mentions that Britten wrote that they had a staggering Miles in the USSR.
He may even have meant me, but there were 2 boys, of course, so he may have been talking about the other one for all I know.
It's been chronicled that David Hemmings, who was the first Miles, Britten had a bit of an infatuation towards him. Did you ever get any of those kind of feelings for you from him at all?
No. To me, Britten was always just very friendly and happy and concerned and just fun to be around. There was never any suggestion of anything else. They all talk about how much Britten was really quite childlike and was really trying to retain a lot of his own youth and his enthusiasm and joy of life, rather than anything more than that.
You did visit the Red House on a few occasions where Britten and Pears lived.
Yes, I went there many times because I was in Aldeburgh probably 3 or 4 summers in a row, rehearsing one thing or another. But it was a wonderful house for a young boy to go to. There was always more than one child there, usually lots of adults too. And there was a tennis court and a swimming pool and a table tennis table in the garage, and you just had more or less free run of the place. It was a wonderful experience.
What did you call him?
I called him Ben when I needed to call him anything. He was very informal like that. And I felt more relaxed with him than I did with the other adult or with the adult singers. I didn't think I should call Peter Pears Mr. Pears or Sir, but I didn't feel bold enough to call him Peter either. So he and others probably were unnamed, whereas Britten would have been quite happy to be called Ben.
You must have a sort of real maelstrom of memories of working with Britten. Is there any one particular thing that sticks out in your memory?
You're absolutely right. I could say I remember the Red House and the parties and the kind of Sunday afternoon tea party atmosphere there was. I could talk about driving in his open-top Alvis in the Suffolk on the Suffolk Roads between Aldeburgh and Thorpe Ness, which was a fantastic experience. But actually, if you want me to pick out just one, I had my 13th birthday in Moscow. And no one really knew it was my birthday. And when we got back to the hotel that particular day, as we opened the door to go into the dining room, all the singers turned around in their seats and Britten stood up and he conducted them all singing Happy Birthday to me. Which completely unexpected. As I say, I didn't think anybody knew about it, and it's a memory that stayed with me forever. It was the most wonderful end to that day, and that's the picture I have of that moment when they were all singing and him conducting.
That is a wonderful story, because probably in the hotel would be Peter Pears and Janet Baker and Robert Teare and all sorts of people like that. And none of those have ever sung Happy Birthday to me, so I'm very, very envious. Robin, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. It's been a real pleasure.